Yeah, we do continue to have good dialogue with Naughty Dog. You want to talk about it, Sean?
Yeah, I mean, with Naughty Dog, with Sony Santa Monica, Sucker Punch, it's just like we've known these people for a long time, and like the fact that we have such a long and great relationship with Sony means we just form relationships with these people, and so we get help with things. Like one interesting example in All for One is our camera system. We actually asked for some advice from the God of War guys, from one of the programmers that does God of War. I know they're completely different games, but what they do is I think that they do an outstanding job of a director's cam. So in that kind of capacity we have it. It's largely informal, but we want to get the most out of the platform, and we want to make the best possible games. And so part of that is helping each other out.
With the PS3 especially, there's been a lot of interesting challenges in learning the architecture originally, and so there was people call each other if we have a bug or an issue. People will pick up the phone and call Al Hastings or Mike Acton, our engine guys, or we'll call them and figure out what we've done. And it's very informal. It's not like we have a big meeting, but even then there are meetings like that. So Naughty Dog did some amazing stuff with mocap and their animation pipelines, and so we had conferences with them that were actually bigger and more formal to talk about it and learn from each other. So Sony does a really good job of all the internal studios working together like that, and different people visiting different studios. I know Mike Acton, our engine director, has gone over to Gorilla, and different people have come and visited us. So I think we have a very kind of open.
Yeah, we went over to Epic, which is like the local studio. It's honestly, it comes back to relationships. Like, one of the awesome things about this industry is even the people that you think are rock stars are actually really cool. Like if I met Ken Levine, he's a really cool guy. It's not like you're meeting someone that's totally inaccessible. And so, like, part of it, you form relationships with these people. It's a very small industry, and a lot of times you can just pick up the phone and talk about stuff if it's in the right setting. It's not violating confidentiality or something like that.
Yeah, about once a month I still have lunch with Amy Hennig, who's Naughty Dog's head writer, and we just talk about, we commiserate about things that we're working on. We talk about different ideas of how to execute story in different ways, and it's very much an open dialogue. But like Sean's saying, it's we have to play it close to the vest sometimes in terms of NDA, and we don't want to tip our hand too much about what we're working on if it's confidential. But otherwise, it's pretty open in terms of passing information back and forth.
And for me, like when I met Amy, all I could think is she made Soul Reaver, which is like one of my favorite games.
She's more down to earth than she has any reason to be. She's such a phenomenal.
Yeah, like she's
so
super
chill,
cool. But to me, I'm like, oh my goodness, one of my favorite games.
My other one had to do with multiplayer, and this probably is more toward your guys' work on Resistance than Ratchet. But what do you think about local versus online multiplayer? Because going from Resistance 1's split screen of just being there, right there with your buddy on the same couch, versus having to be in two separate rooms on two separate TVs in order to do the same thing in Resistance 2 was, I felt, a fairly drastic shift.
Well, I can actually talk about that as it relates to Ratchet and Clank All for One, because that's what we're focused on right now. And we think both of them are really important. We want you to be able to sit on a couch with your friends and play the game and get all the content. And we also want to support your play style if your friends are across the world or across the country. So we've made it our goal from the beginning to support any play style, 1 to 4 players with online, offline, and any combination of the two. And it's also important to us to enable drop in and drop out. So if you start a game by yourself and your friend comes over, they can jump in and kind of pick up where you left off. We just think starting the game and jumping in and having fun shouldn't be a thing that requires a ton of effort. It should just be something that's easy and fun to get into.
And I guess just to answer from the Burbank side a little bit, we aren't really talking about Resistance 3 too much, but I have seen a lot of feedback like that, and we have taken a lot of the feedback we've gotten from both Resistance 1 and Resistance 2 really seriously, and Resistance 3. And we'll talk more in the future about what our plans are for Resistance 3, so stay tuned on that front.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi guys, how's it going?
Hey.
As a soon-to-be graduate in a 3D animation program, I was wondering, when you guys were talking about the process of getting hired, for an animation position, what would be that kind of week-long kind of project that you would send their way? Is there like a very specific thing that you always do, or is there just kind of a similar thing that you shuffle new characters, or exactly what that entails?
Sure. So, I mean, first for the animation portfolio, typically we look at clips. Sometimes people will send clips of dialogue, acting with models that can be very simple. You don't have to make your own model and rig it necessarily to show us animation skills. And maybe a good number of those, maybe it's only 6, 15 to 20 second clips. I mean, that tells us quite a bit about where you are. Having some walk cycles is definitely a good thing. We can tell a lot from those. We see a pretty broad range, in other words. But the thing that I said earlier is really true. It's all about making sure that what we do see is all of the highest caliber, because that tells us a lot about where you are in your work and your ability to edit your own work. And then the test that we send is it's a couple of different animations for 2 different models and rigs. And it's a robot girl is one of the models that we send out, and we ask for a walk cycle, a death, an attack, and one other one that I can't remember offhand. And we also send out a more realistic, I guess I put that in quotes, alien model, and we ask for a walk cycle and an attack from that as well. So I guess what I'm getting at is there's a pretty broad stylistic range in the tests that we send out, and we're really looking for the basics, strong poses, good crisp timing, sense of weight. We're looking at the 12 classic principles of animation more than we're looking for any specific technical skill.
Okay, so you're saying the models are already rigged and already painted?
Yeah, that's totally fine. I mean,
kick it out to them.
Yeah, the model. We include rigged models with the test because we're looking at the animation above everything else.
Right on. And one other thing, I know you guys, you say you operate in a smaller group, and I noticed that in the gaming industry, some of the bigger companies tend to inflate their teams and then just lay off half of them after a project. Is that something that you guys do, or it sounds like you guys don't do that at all?
No, we would.
Look, Chad outlined kind of the process we go through to hire every employee. We don't do that so we can get rid of them. Like we're trying to make it. We're trying to make a very, very good decision about bringing on a candidate that can add something to the company in the long term. It's absolutely not disposable. There are some things that there's some seasonal work, like we'll use like contract
testers
for contract testers,
but they come in knowing that ahead of time.
Yeah, it's not that's just like part of the program.
Yeah. And sometimes positions do change long term, but generally we want everyone to be there, and we try and do a really good job of planning our projects so that the problem is that if you have a team of say 300 people that everyone's been thrown on to finish a game in the last year or whatever, then what do you do when they're done? How do you put 300 people on one game that doesn't have an idea or hasn't been prototyped at all or has nowhere to go? That's why you see these mass layoffs. And so we have a very good management team between these guys and the folks in Burbank who have planned that out. And so we know where everyone's going to do, what will everyone be working on, and we're thinking about that not just for the next year, we're thinking about that many years in advance so that we have a roadmap of where people are going to go. And so that's something that wouldn't happen at Insomniac.
Well, as a potential future employee of any gaming industry system or company, appreciate that.
No problem. Thumbs up around the audience, I see.
Hey there.
Hi.
So previous Ratchet and Clank games have been single player and that has one type of story. So I was wondering, what were you keeping in mind when you were thinking of like a 4-player game in terms of the story? Is there anything different that you've done?
Again, like Chad and Sean were the ones that came up with sort of the core story, which was this interesting planet with this interesting mythology where this giant, seemingly autonomous drone was picking up large creatures from around the universe and transporting them to this planet. And by some crazy happenstance, Ratchet, Clank, Quark, and Nefarious were kidnapped and brought to that same planet. So the story basically focuses on those 4 players and everything that they have to do in order to band together and survive. So the changes that's brought to me as a writer is coming up with all kinds of crazy fun back and forths and dialogue for the characters to have as they trek across this planet, because you want to hear Quark monologue as he traipses through this alien planet. You want to hear him and Nefarious bicker back and forth because they hate each other. And it's coming up with just lots of different kinds of conversations like that, because you can be any character at any time. So we have to write characters just in case the players are playing with Clank and Nefarious, or just in case they're playing with Quark and Ratchet. And so it's been a lot of fun for me coming up with just all these different things for them to say as they make their way through Planet Magnus. It's been a ton of fun.
Okay, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
This is sort of like a follow-up question to the previous one. How do you approach the implementation of writing 4 characters at once, especially with like incidental dialogue during the gameplay?
That's a very good question, and that is a process that goes on throughout the entire project. What I'll do is I'll work with the designers and Sean and Chad to find out exactly what's going on in this level in regards to gameplay. What do the characters need to know? And then on top of that, I'll write lots of fun stuff as well for them to say, like the Quark monologue. Like you got to get those things in to keep up the sense of humor and the flavor, and really give the game an identity. And we'll get it all in, and from there, it's very much a back and forth where we play through. We say, okay, when are we hearing too much dialogue? Like when are we just spamming the player with so many lines that they can't understand what's going on? Oh, this looks like a fun thing to remark on. We need to write something for this. And it's all about cutting the lines that don't work, adding lines that do, and just kind of massaging with what makes everything trigger, so that it feels like these guys are real and playing alongside you, and they're remarking on the same things you'd be remarking on if you were actually going through this alien jungle or cave or whatever.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. Having seen yesterday's demo of All for One, there's some pretty awesome ideas in there, and I was just wondering, were there any ideas that didn't quite make it to there that you've set aside for any other game, or...
That's one of my favorite questions. What ideas do you not have that you're going to put in a future game?
We never. I don't think we ever lack for ideas at Insomniac.
Yeah.
We always have more ideas than we know what to do with. So
it seems like almost editing and prioritizing the ideas is, and then executing them is a much bigger job than coming up with them. I mean, we have brainstorming sessions frequently, and everybody on the team contributes great stuff that we could choose to execute, but we have to pick and choose, definitely. We look at what the core of the game is and just try to structure everything around that, and things tend to fall into place pretty well when we do that.
We can't really talk about what we might use in the future, or because we're probably not even sure exactly what we're going to do in the future yet, since we're still on this one, but rest assured that great ideas live on in a spreadsheet somewhere and will eventually be reviewed.
I will say, all the titles that we came up with that did not make it, I use in the comic book.
Yeah, all the comic book issues are rejected game names, actually, which is pretty funny.
I can say that there's a chance that we might use an idea that we may or may not have come up with on this project.
100%
in the future, and possibly
you
in
can
the
say
past.
with certainty.
I don't know.
All right, thanks.
Sure.
Thanks.
For the Ratchet & Clank game, as for the multiplayer, is there always going to be four characters on the screen at all times that's AI controlled?
That's a really good question. So let me break it down. For the one-player game, we give you one AI teammate. And the reason is we think that works a lot better in terms of keeping the focus on the single player while still kind of giving you the feeling of working with a team. Whereas if we gave you 3 AI teammates, it almost feels like you're outnumbered by the AI at that point, and it just creates a dynamic where it's not about your experience playing through quite as much. However, if there are 2 human players, then it's simply 2 characters on screen. Same thing with 3 human characters. And the game scales to account for all that. You know, we knew early on that we needed to support all these play styles. So a lot of our systems scale, you know, to make sure that the game is fun with any configuration of players. And also, it's a big challenge for us to make sure that things we come up with are going to be fun with any number.
And just to close on that point, and we are out of time, unfortunately, but you guys can grab stuff first. We're going to hang out for a minute outside, too, so you can get your questions in. It does support any combination of people sitting on a couch with online players, so you can be alone on the couch with 3 people somewhere else, or 2 of you on a couch with 2 friends, or 2 and 1 and 1. So you can always get that 4-player experience if you want it, if you want to play online, or just by having 4 friends around, whatever works best. Thank you guys all for coming, and for everyone listening at home, please email us your thoughts and questions to podcast@insomniacgames.com. Follow us on Twitter, Insomniac Games. This is the live Full Moon Show from PAX, and to our audience, thank you guys very much for coming. It's great to have you guys here for this. So talk to you all soon.
Baba Booey to y'all.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.